Hello everyone, welcome back to I've Been Playing. Today we are taking a look at the Callisto Protocol. Now this game has already received a fair amount of negative press, I think mainly for the PC version not performing especially well. I haven't had any issues with it, I've been playing on PS5. The only thing that's happened to me is clipping through a wall once when I died. I haven't really noticed anything else major. So performance-wise and graphics-wise, looks great. Now I'm not quite done with the game yet. I've heard it's not a particularly long one, which is nice, because I've got limited time in my life, just as an adult, I mean. And I think if it was a longer experience, it would probably overstay its welcome. It's quite linear, which is nice. The main plot, from what I can tell so far, obviously I don't know how it ends because I'm not there yet, and that would be spoilers anyway, is that you start out on a ship, you are transporting something, potentially illegal from the sounds of things, who knows, and then you get all crashed on Callisto, one of the moons of Jupiter, and then you get put into Black Iron Prison along with the person who technically was the reason your ship crashed. I mean, she was the reason your ship crashed. Not even technically, she just was. And then all hell breaks loose, and so do you, and then you have to escape. And you do meet up with some characters along the way. There's one character called Elias who you stick with through the prison because he knows the prison really well. He helps you escape. The one who attacked your ship is still there. She pops up on occasion. Otherwise, you meet mainly bad people or people who have been turned into bad monsters, called biophages in this one. The thing is, this game is very Dead Space. It's obvious that it would be, of course, given who worked on it and who is involved with it, but it is so Dead Space. Like, I'm not entirely convinced this isn't just the Dead Space remake itself. It's not, obviously, but it feels very much like it easily could be. A lot of it's very familiar. The menu pops up like it does in Dead Space. You have a grippy kinesis power thing on your left hand so you can pick things up and throw them. Very Dead Space. All of the over-the-top gore and monsters popping out of vents and the mutations and even the plot line to some extent is quite Dead Space. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that maybe releasing this within 2 months of an actual Dead Space remake is not gonna reflect well on this game once the Dead Space remake comes out, assuming it's a good remake. We have yet to see. I think it comes out in a couple weeks. It's relatively soon. But the problem with it feeling very much like Dead Space is that it feels very much like the original Dead Space in some ways. From a gameplay perspective, I had to turn the sensitivity basically all the way up because it was impossible to turn the camera. It felt like it was resisting me at every turn. That obviously is very much up to your personal preference, but it was just so slow. A lot of the puzzles, quote-unquote puzzles, are not difficult. A lot of it just amounts to get a fuse from this fuse box, put the fuse in this fuse box, this door opens, wait a little while waves of enemies come and attack you, and then you can get out because the door is opened. It feels very, for lack of a better word, old. It feels like old gameplay designs in many, many ways. Also in terms of how the checkpoints work. The checkpoints are bad. Or, to be more fair, the checkpoints aren't bad, but there is a manual save system, but even if you manually save halfway in between one checkpoint and the other, you get sent back to the last checkpoint when you reload anyway, so what is the point? And none of your progress is saved either. It's not like you can save there all of the stuff you've collected or the boxes you've opened will be saved. It's gone. I've tried multiple times. I don't know if it's meant to or not, but it doesn't. And it's really annoying at this point when generally if games let you manually save in between checkpoints and you die and go back to the checkpoint, you'll at least have the stuff you collected. A lot of the time. Maybe not all of the time, but I feel like a lot of the games I've played recently will at least let you keep the stuff. It's also one of those games that has trophies or... is it on Xbox? Achievements as well? It's at least on PC, so it's achievements as well, I assume. That are based on what difficulty you play it at, which were never fun in the first place, let's be honest. But at this point, especially with the level of accessibility options a lot of games had, I didn't really look into it with this one actually. I know there were some for subtitles and such, dyslexic font, etc. But at this point, with that level of customization, why do I still get rewarded on what difficulty I'm playing on? It shouldn't matter. You just want me to play the game, right? What year is it? So I realized that was a lot of complaining. I'm not disliking the game, really. I dislike the checkpoints. I dislike that the combat feels more difficult than it needs to. And also, if you do happen to die and respawn in an area, you aren't necessarily going to pick up bullets if you picked up bullets somewhere before, especially lockers and random enemy drops and stuff like that. You're not necessarily guaranteed the same items every time, which means one time you could get a ton of ammo, but other times you could just get health, and then Callisto credits, which are used to upgrade things, which won't help if I die before I get to an upgrade thing, so I don't like that. I've done it again. Every time I start talking about it, I start complaining. I don't dislike the game as a whole. I think it feels very dated in a lot of ways. I'm not 100% sure about the story yet, mainly because I still don't really know what's going on with my main character, or the woman who attacked our ship in the beginning of the game. I'm not finding it particularly scary, but I didn't really find Dead Space all that scary either, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, I play and watch and read a lot of horror stuff, so my tolerance for scares is a lot higher than most people's. So do not take that as an affirmation that it is 100% not scary. It might be, you might find it scary. That's just, in my opinion, it is not very scary. But it's fun when I'm getting along with the combat. I am interested to see where the story goes. I don't know that it's going to be particularly in-depth, and like I said, it's not going to be that long a game, so I'm not worried about it in terms of, you know, taking hundreds of hours of my time with an unsatisfying ending. But I also feel like there's potential there that probably won't be reached. One thing I did forget to mention about the graphics, because as I said, it looks amazing, at least on PS5, as much as I've seen. For the most part, the one thing that looks really weird, and I don't know why, is the fire. The fire looks really, really bad. Just really bad. I don't know how to describe it. It just looks wrong. And it stands out so much because the rest of the game looks so good and, I mean, photorealistic as far as I know. I don't know what a space station looked like, but it just looks strange, and it's noticeable every time it happens, which was mostly in the first part of the game, I think, more than anywhere else, but it was noticeable enough that I was stopping in my tracks and being like, why does that fire look so bad? Normally I talk about whether I would recommend playing the game I'm talking about. I don't know that I have a strong opinion one way or the other. It depends very much on your experience with Dead Space, your interest or tolerance for sci-fi horror in the first place, what system you're playing on, especially from the sounds of things. I think if you're interested in playing it, it's probably worth giving a go, especially if you're a Dead Space fan, because like I said, it does feel very much like that. And if you want more of that, it's worth checking out. The Dead Space remake will probably be more what you want, because it is Dead Space, but this game is basically Dead Space in all but name, being a spiritual successor as it is, but it's also just generally, even if it wasn't, it was very clearly Dead Space. But we'll have to wait and see if the remake's any good. I think if you just really like Dead Space and want as much of it as you could possibly get, this is probably a game to play. You know, it's a little frustrating, but it's fine. What a glowing recommendation. Anyway, that's been my impression of the Callisto Protocol so far from what I've played. Have you played it, and what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you next time.